Hello, everybody. Just waiting for our expert team to join us today. Welcome, everyone, to our webinar, our team, how to effectively leverage freelancers to run successful web development projects. So I'm Stephen Neville, CEO of BugHerd, former agency owner myself, so this is a topic I know quite a bit about. BugHerd helps improve communication between web development teams and their clients. And so this conversation is a part of a mission that we have, which is to help agencies thrive by giving them the tools they need to succeed. So managing freelance relationships effectively is a crucial part of agency life. So I'm thrilled to introduce our expert panel here from Codeable. I'll get each of you to introduce yourselves. And then Hudson, maybe at the end you can give us an introduction for Codeable as well, which is for the people in the audience who may not know it. So Elson, let's start with you. Please tell us a brief bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elson, and I am based in Madeira Island, Portugal. I've joined Codeable in 2016, and I discovered WordPress in 2007 while a student and browsing forums. That started a passion that lives on till this day. Some of my background is building, planning, managing viral blogs with millions of hits a day. And on Codeable, I tend to focus on mostly managing small to medium projects, all kinds of projects, and helping clients achieve business goals.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Shanta, over to you.
Hi, my name is Shanta. Sorry, my camera did something funny. I'm originally from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I've been an expert on the platform since 2021. I actually joined the platform full-time as their project liaison manager, and now I'm back to being an expert. My specialty is project management, and right now I'm actually in Germany getting ready to attend CloudFest. So my apologies if I look a bit flushed. I only got in about an hour ago, so it's been a day.
You look lovely. Marius.
Thanks, Steve. Hi, everyone. My name is Marius, and I am based in Lausanne, in the beautiful country of Switzerland. I joined Codeable back in 2015. That makes it 10 years already. And after 1 year on Codeable, I founded WP Riders Agency. And then I basically scaled it from the business of 1 to more than 20 people across 8 countries. And our team is pretty proud of being able to have worked for some large brands such as Panasonic, DigitalOcean, BNP Paribas, the bank, and many other innovative companies. Thank you.
Excellent. No, thank you. And so Hudson, finally yourself, and also could you, for our audience, give us a brief rundown on what Codeable is for those who may not know it?
Sure. Thank you, Stephen. Hi, everyone. My name is Hudson Atwell, and I'm a client and partner success manager with Codeable. In April, it'll start my 7th year internally with Codeable, and before that, I was an expert for 2 years. So it's a real pleasure to meet you all and represent Codeable among beside our fine experts here and the very impressive BugHerd product. Okay, so a little bit about Codeable. Codeable is the world's only WordPress-focused freelance platform with a dedicated workforce of senior WordPress developers. Combined, we are partnered with over 400 hosts, theme and plugin shops within the WordPress ecosystem, and there's no project that's too big or too small that we take on. One of the things that makes Codeable platforms so special is that we can, within reason, give 100% free estimates for all projects that you come to us with. And those will help you make your business decisions. Okay, and that's Codeable. So we thank you for your time and attention, and we hope that everyone walks away today with a new perspective about leveraging freelancers to help with your project. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for sharing. Can't wait to share your expertise. A couple of bits of housekeeping. The chat is open. Feel free to let us know where in the world you're coming from today. I'm in Melbourne, Australia. Our experts here are spread across the world as we've just discovered. Sorry. Quick housekeeping note as well. The Q&A section, chuck questions in there. We will give some dedicated time at the end, but we'll also get to them as we go if they're relevant to the discussion as we move along. So With all of that done, let's get into the discussion. Lots to talk about today. So I'm going to start, I guess, with something for all of us, really defining what we mean by freelancing for the purposes of this discussion. So, Marius and Elson, I know you've mentioned you actually run an agency kind of effectively through, say, made up of freelancer talent through the platform. So when we say freelancer, do we mean managing individual talent, or is it a broader question than this? So I might start with you, Elson and Marius on that. Oh, Marius?
Yeah, I can go on this one. In my perspective, my colleagues' perspective, a freelancer is essentially somebody who's a one-man company. They're providing services to multiple clients. They have multiple bosses. But when it comes to working with freelancers in our team, we don't use this word at all. We don't call them freelancers. We just say they are contractors. And then we have full-time employees. And that is because we treat all of them, like both of these categories, in the same way. And we can dig deeper into this, why we think this is important. But for now, we call them contractors.
Yeah, excellent. Anyone else to add, elaborate, Shanta?
I was going to say,
I can add my 2 cents.
I was going to say, for me, it's more like, I think of it as like a small business. Agencies, to me, tend to have a larger group of people. So you're hiring a freelancer or a contractor, it tends to be a smaller group or an individual. And, there are some good things and some bad things that go along with each one of those, which I'm sure we'll explore.
Excellent. Nelson?
So yeah, in Codeable, it's kind of a different approach to it. On Codeable, you're not just a freelancer, you're an expert, right? And when you hire an expert, you expect results to be delivered in a certain standard, and it has to match some set of expectations. So what I expect from another colleague at Codeable, another freelancer, or someone that we hire for a specific subset of project, is to carry on the list of tasks with the most professional and with professional tone and to the highest level of quality they can achieve with the tools they have in hand. So you can trust a freelancer or an expert to deliver you on what was promised. And I think this is the basis to it.
Excellent. Great answers. Hudson, do you have anything to add beyond that?
Just that on our platform, we have about 90% individuals and about 10% boutique agencies. These are small agencies with 5 or less individuals, contractors. I believe that everyone here had great points about calling experts contractors here and experts rather than freelancers, and that's we take a lot of pride in our vetted status at Codeable. There's a 90-day onboarding process. It's very labor intensive, and we really make sure that our experts arrive with a high degree of project management experience in addition to development experience. So we're seeing both sides of working with clients and knowing how to lead them, as well as executing on the technical and design aspects of the project. So yes, good answers from our experts here.
Yeah, great. Thank you. All right. So Marius, you touched on this a little bit in your thing there, but many agencies are weighing up the choice between kind of freelancers, full-time employees. From your experiences, what are the unique advantages that so we'll use the word contractors, freelancers, experts. What are the unique advantages they bring to the agency? What is the right time for an agency to engage, do you think?
As an agency and even as a freelancer or contractor, we'll just use these words interchangeably. I think everyone can agree on this. When you're doing contractor work, either as an agency or freelancer, sometimes you go through these cycles of fast and famine, and then you have a lot of work, and then you don't have enough work, and you have to constantly balance the amount of work you have with your capacity to deliver that work at a high quality. Now, one way to address this cycle and to transform it from a vicious into a virtuous cycle is to balance the full-time employees with contractors. And in my opinion, in our opinion, the difference between the two, the only difference is that the full-time employees, they give you 8 hours a day. They are fully dedicated. They get paid a full-time salary, whereas contractors, they get paid on a project basis. But however, both of them are in for the long term. So that's probably where my little, and that's probably just me, the little twist between a freelancer and a contractor. I see a freelancer more as a on and off person, whereas contractor, in our opinion, it's another colleague. They go through the same onboarding process. But yeah, just to come back to your question, if you want to balance the projects that you can get and to be able to handle more work than you can usually handle, it's always good to have in your team, in our opinion, it's maybe half full-time employees and half contractors, just so you can quickly expand when more work comes in.
Yeah. And as follow-up, one of the things you kind of touched on, certainly when we spoke earlier, is this thing about bringing people into your culture and treating them as employees as much as you do. So the onboarding processes, and do you want to elaborate on that slightly?
Yes, sure. We actually have procedures for most of the repetitive things like written checklists and procedures, but our onboarding procedure starts with discussing our company values with a new colleague. It's just the same process for everyone.
Yep.
And the reason company values are important is that they show what kind of compromises we're collectively we're not going to make as we walk together along this path. And after we clarify the value alignment, which, by the way, it's clarified way before we do have our values in our job ads, just to make sure we attract the right people. You don't impose values. The values are, in my opinion, something it's like a wavelength you communicate. It's like an FM radio. You tune in into the right frequency, and then you start getting like-minded people. So we reiterate the values at the beginning of the onboarding process, and then there's a lot of things that we cover, such as what is billable, non-billable time, what are the documents we have to fill in, creating all the accounts with all the permissions, doing the trainings that we need to do for developers, for salespersons, for project managers, and then telling them how do we do performance appraisals every 6 months and all of that. So then again, we have had contractors working with us for 4 or 5 years. I would have a hard time calling them freelancers. They're just our colleagues.
Yeah. And I think that, so you touched on some of the things from, I guess, maybe the agency perspective there, but I'm interested for the rest of you, what does that add for the contractor or freelancer's perspective if they've been onboarded in the same way as a full-time employee? Elson, perhaps?
So I was thinking about it. When I joined Codeable, I had an experience of being full-time on an agency. They would hire me to be an extra set of hands for a project. As soon as I was onboarded, that project was kind of canceled. So they kept me around during the rest of the month to help out on tasks. There's pros and cons, right? If you work for the freelancer life, you want the liberty to define your own schedules. However, if you are selling your hours to a company, you are expected to deliver and be on call on those hours, right? And there was this point where I was at a conference with the laptop in my lap because there was some urgent requests that should be pre-scheduled. And I was thinking to myself, I won't repeat this because at that point I became a freelancer to have options to schedule things as I wanted. So upsides and downsides. I think if you hire a freelancer into your team, you need to set expectations of what is expected in terms of reply times, meetings, times to delivery, etc.
Excellent. Uh, And so, as someone who's worked on both the freelancer side and running an agency within Codeable yourself, is there any perspectives that you can share about the the freelancer mindset? I guess you've just touched on there around setting your own schedule that may not be appreciated, but from the agency side.
Yeah, so I've transitioned from another agency into freelancer and then opening my own agency. And the reason why I left was mostly I didn't have freedom to choose one, the clients and two, the projects, and to work on the projects as I saw fit. There were times if we work for a big organization, you disagree on some aspects, and the boss will say, "Do as I said." Right? However, you being a creative person and having confidence in your abilities, you could do better in that project and deliver better. However, sometimes the molds block you from delivering on what your vision is. And me being a creative person, I wanted that freedom to see my creativity reflect on my projects. And being a freelancer, you can talk to some clients, you can see if you have this kind of connection where the client tells you his vision for the project and you share the same vision and you work on it and then you build something great, right? Instead of just being within the molds of like just deliver on this list and you'll be fine and build a client, right? So experts and freelancers want creative freedom. They want freedom to schedule things at their own pace, and they want freedom to work on things they like and freedom to not work on things they don't. So I think that sums it up in my perspective.
Great, thank you. Might move into something a little bit more practical, I guess, in terms of working through projects, working with freelancers. So Shanti, you've got a lot of experience in this. I guess when evaluating freelance talent, what are the specific qualities, signals that you look for to signal a high value collaborator, and also the opposite of that, like what red flags would you suggest to kind of stay away from?
So I think what Marius said earlier about having someone who fits your culture is important. Um, and I think they will probably also have their own processes that they have that work for them. And I think the key is to find what works for both. So if you both use Slack, great. That's part of the problem. Some of us, for example, for the hackathon here, we're using Mattermost. We're not using Slack. So, I think one of the keys that you need to find is that sort of middle ground. But at the same time, they will have their own processes. So you also need to listen to them. If they are your expert, they've been doing this a lot longer. There's a reason you're hiring them.
Yep.
So, at least take what they're telling you with a bit of grain of salt. And I'll also talk about the project management side of it. Become prepared with your own questions, right? How do you see a project going and those types of things? Red flags for me are not necessarily if you ask them which plugin are you going to use that they don't know yet. That's not a problem. That means that they don't know the project well enough to make the proper determination. So one of the things I would say that I find is really important when hiring a freelancer or anybody for that matter, discovery. If the project is big enough, they should be setting up a time that you should be paying them for, that they can look into your project in more depth, make recommendations, and go forward with that discovery part. And if after that discovery part you don't agree, you shake hands, you part ways. But then at least you, as the agency, have gained some insight, perhaps that you didn't have before. And that may be in the form of a scope of work, or they've made some recommendations about a particular plugin. You can always tell them there is a plugin we don't want to use, or there is a theme we don't want to use, or whatever that thing is. And then you'll know right off the bat, and they won't waste time on that. But so I think that the key is, don't be afraid to go with a discovery right off the bat. And I think any agency should be willing to pay for that. And any freelancer or contractor that you're going to work with, if the project, let's say, is going to be anything over $1,000, there should be a discovery.
Certainly. You touched on scope in that one, and scopes of work. So, the obvious other side of that is scope creep. It's a common challenge in all agency projects, always. Are there any kind of conceptual frameworks or communication strategies that are unique to working with freelancers that can help manage that, or is it very similar to the way an agency works with their clients?
So one of the things I started using before I even joined Codeable is something called a master services contract. Now, usually that can mean something that you are going to use over time, but it also sets up the rules regardless of what project you're using. And I think it will depend on whose contract you're using, but ultimately there needs to be a scope. There needs to be an agreed upon scope. A scope is not 5 lines. A scope can also end up being hugely long, but again, that what we call like a basic scope is like, here's what we're going to work on in the discovery. And then once you've gone and done the discovery, which is again a paid thing, that scope can then be what we call a deep dive scope. So now we've looked at the project, we've talked about the project, we're, coming together. Are we going to be able to work together and those types of things? And again, then the expert should be able to provide you with, here's a proposal and a deep dive proposal where it's, pages and pages, where they've done the research, they've done the investigation, and that should include the scope of work. We will undertake to do this, 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 and this. And in here, we're going to use this particular plugin and whatever else. They probably won't tell you before they've done a proper discovery, which is again, probably a paid phase of the project. But if you're not going to, if after you've done a discovery, it's just not going to work out. If you've paid them for that, they should be giving you some kind of document of what the results of their research were or what their scope proposed was, even if you don't agree, because then you're still going to learn from that and then carry that forward. But like I said, one of the infrastructures that I was using was something called Monster Contracts with Nathan Ingram. And it is really, really amazing. The framework was built on the American laws. However, I took that to my own Canadian lawyer and they had very, very few changes. If anything, it was like legislation around accessibility. We have the AODA in Ontario, whereas it's something different in the States. So that definitely is worth the money you'll pay for it, for sure.
Excellent. There's a couple of things come to my mind in that I'll make a note to come back to, particularly around labour laws and how people are defined as employees in various countries, because it's quite different in different markets. But one follow-on question I had, and maybe for Marius or Elson, I'm interested in the pricing model here, or how you charge to get the best out of a freelancer relationship, because we talk about scope, and so you set a scope of work, and is that a fixed cost? Is that generally the best way to do it? Or is it often better when it's done as a time and materials, or is it a combination of of those gets the best outcome on? Marius, do you have thoughts on that?
Yes. After trying out many bidding models, we eventually set on just 2. And those are essentially what you mentioned. One of them is fixed pricing, where we do an estimate, eventually with a paid discovery upfront, as Shanta mentioned. In cases like this one, with fixed price projects, we do have the same agreement with a freelancer or contractor working on the particular project. And this keeps everyone aligned, and the risks are well managed. In certain cases, we do go with a time and materials approach, and sometimes clients go with us on a retainer where we charge a monthly subscription for some development hours or design hours. And that's where we apply the same approach with a contractor we are working. So basically keeping the two in alignment, it's a good way, in our opinion, to keep everyone on the same page and to have everyone's incentives aligned.
I think that's a really excellent, from my experience of running an agency, which we probably didn't do that. I think that's seems like a very good strategy. Elson, do you have anything to add to that?
So I agree with most of it. Depending on the project, we do sometimes have experts on retainer with packages of hours that will allocate to projects, depending if the client is requesting also hour-based product work. Other cases, we estimate a fixed scope of work on either a subset of the scope and allocate budgets to it based on what the client is paying above the project. And then there's like projects that we assemble teams for on Codeable. For example, on Codeable, we have this use case where you could, on a workroom, add other Codeable members to your team and then manage them, right? The project will be under your management. You will process the payments. The client will pay you. You will pay the team, and then you'll manage the overall budget of the project. This works quite well for some ongoing projects because your client's always funding tasks or new tasks and you're redistributing to Codeable. And then everyone's in check. You can do internal transfers between experts and things work out. This model means that, for example, on some projects, if the scope is totally transparent for everyone and everyone knows how much a project will cost, that means that I can go to all the team and say, okay, so this is your part, and my take on this project is the next percentage of the project because I will be managing this day to day, and I assume some of that risk, and we try to find a bit of a fair way to distribute the money from the project.
Excellent. I just want to cycle back to the labour laws thing. So certainly in Australia, a new regulation has come out which defines one of the ways it defines a kind of contractor versus an employee, regardless of whether they are employed full time or not, is the contractor's ability to reassign that work. So if they cannot do that and reassign that to someone else, they are effectively being treated as an employee under our labour laws, right? And so then we have a thing called superannuation. It's like 401k or whatever. You have to pay that on behalf of them. So I guess I'm just interested quickly on. I'm not really sure my question here, but how that how we think about that definition. Like, if we're employing a freelancer or a contractor, are we comfortable that they are able to assign that work on, or would we prefer that that relationship, we're controlling that relationship and they control the work, so we're asking them to do that work clearly. Shanta.
So Codeable handles this, right? As an expert on the platform, I cannot assign it to anybody off of Codeable.
Yep.
I'm not allowed, right? I can hire other experts that are on the platform. I can hire my own employees under my own company. Then I am the one responsible. And this also has to go around privacy as much as it does the employee laws.
Yeah, certainly.
But in addition to that, is that if I'm hiring another freelancer, they actually are the ones that have to sign the agreement with Codeable.
Yep.
Right? So that they are covered by the privacy and whatever else, but they effectively work under my portfolio.
Yep.
And they want to end up working on their own projects and become their own Codeable expert. I actually have to release them. So that's at least how they cover it on Codeable.
Yeah,
in
certainly.
Canada, it's something similar that they've come around with. Australia, Canada, UK, they all sort of have similar sort of backgrounds. So in Canada, I believe that the more recent laws are basically saying, yeah, it's not so much about reassignment as much as it is the amount of time. If
Yep.
you have hired somebody on a contract themselves and they are doing the work themselves, that may be a part of it, but it's also about the amount of time. If you are basically paying them for a 40-hour work week for however long, say beyond 3 months or something, you may actually have to hire them as an employee.
Yeah.
I'll have to check on the laws on that, but it's something similar to that.
Yeah, great. And so, Chandra, so following on, I guess, from some of those discussions around managing the project and managing scope and things like that, when you're working with contractors, freelancers, and if performance starts to fall behind, do you have a kind of structured intervention process that you recommend that people go through to recalibrate expectations?
I most definitely do. Change management. Change management is key. The scope of work is the scope of work. When an expert has gone through the trouble of detailing out, and by the way, I am not a time and management, a time person in terms of that's what I quote on or estimate on. I make sure that if this is the estimate that I'm giving you, I may have done my own calculations in the background, but ultimately, this is the project that I'm going to deliver. If I deliver it in 10 hours and I quoted you 15, I've done a better job, right? If I take 20 hours and I quoted you 15, well, that's my problem, right? Ultimately, the benefit that the client should be receiving is the same. So I will always be sort of a more total value person. However, if you go outside of the scope of work, that is a change to the scope. And that can be done in one of two ways. One, especially on Codeable, you can either say this is an additional task, which is probably what we will say, is this is an additional task. This is outside of the scope that we have already determined. If you're telling me that this needs to be part of this project, then we need to reconfigure the estimate, etc. If this can be done later, well, then we can add that as an additional task at a later time and add that later. Further to that, though, the way that I manage my projects, and I've done this even when the person that I was being in contact with, this is before I joined Codeable, the person that I was supposed to be in contact with at the company changed. So the person that was actually authorizing my work and was checking my work changed. So even though there wasn't a change to the budget or a change to the time constraint, I made sure there was a piece of paper that went to the original person that signed the contract that says, you've designated this person to make the decisions on your behalf. Are you okay with this? Because it changed 3 or 4 times over the course of 6 months as their staff changed. So that if the decision was made at this point and then a month later it changed again, no, that person said that it was going to be this, they had the authority to make that. Oh, no, but I didn't authorize them. Yes, you did. If nothing else, it covers your butts. Because at any given time, you can present them and say, we made this change. And usually outside of Codeable, by the way, I will also propose a change budget that doesn't get charged to the bottom line of the project, but we can usually say it's going to be, 10% of the project. You can expect over the course of a 6 month project or however long it is, that you can expect that we will have this overrun based on the changes because we did a design and it didn't quite work out, or you guys were delayed in giving us the media or something of that nature. So having a change management in place or a method by which you can do that and change requests and who can authorize it is the key.
And so that sounds to me like just general project management excellence, right? Is there anything?
You'd be surprised how many people don't do it.
Yes, absolutely. Is there anything specific in that where we'd say that we can apply to managing freelancers, or do we expect that the contractor or freelancer brings that change management process to us?
If they don't, you should ask for it.
Yeah. So
yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily call that a red flag because neither side may have this, right? If they bring that to you as part of their offering, then it's probably a good thing for them to have.
Yep.
If they don't, you implement it.
Yeah, excellent. So moving topics slightly again. So Elson, given freelancers are often juggling multiple projects, multiple clients, and you touched on earlier their desire to have time to themselves, to manage like different types of, they have different desires than say necessarily like full-time employees. What practical strategies can agencies use to ensure that, their projects remain a high priority for that person and get the job done on time?
So, do you recall your coolest teacher in school when you grew up? Right?
Just
Do you
some
recall your coolest client?
Yeah.
If that client called today 3 years later, you'll probably pick it up with a smile, right? I think that's the basis. If you treat people well, if people like working with you, they'll make you a priority. And that is basically how I try to choose my clients as well. If we have a good work dynamics, if there's self-respect, if there's mutual respect between the team members, and things will go wrong, they will go wrong. It's how you handle things when they will go wrong. Even if the client makes a mistake and comes to you and be like, well, I promised this to my end client. I know it's not in scope. It's quite a big piece. What can we do to help each other, right? If you help the person, you understand mistakes happen, you'll try to do your best and you'll probably work with them again and again. If you have a surplus of work that Codeable experts tend to have, you tend to choose the ones you like to work with. And I've seen experts that work with me on projects that they prefer to work with me on certain projects. We have a good dynamic, and I have favorite colleagues as well, because we develop this bond of mutual trust where you know that they will do their end, you'll do your end, and you'll deliver great projects. So if your goal is to keep talent for a long time, especially freelancer talent, make sure they're valued. And second, make sure they're respected and that if you don't push things onto them, you try to make terms in terms of what is expected on each side, so that to keep things professional but light. Because some projects, when they turn sour, nobody likes it, right? And you don't want to repeat it, even if it just ends sour. You'll just avoid it if you have the chance. And I think that's the core of it.
The things I was thinking of when you said that is time. So giving people enough time to do a thing, responding to their questions in a timely way, so not sitting on questions. That like broadly speaking, into that clear communication and as you said, respect.
So,
oh, sorry.
if I can add some notes to it, in terms of when you deliver a piece of project to someone, it needs to be clearly defined. You have to have goals. You need to have the requirements well outlined. You need to define how you will communicate and what time. What frequency should they reply to you, and what frequency should they expect replies from you back, and when they will get paid. So again, I didn't touch this in the beginning because I assume this is a base, right? Every project should have this as a base, but relationships and keeping things as promised are what matters.
Yeah, great. Just another follow-on quickly is does the rate of pay impact that relationship? So paying people, at market, like at a fair market rate, I guess, or if not even above that, does that establish rather than trying to kind of cut margin all the time versus paying people who you want to have a long-term relationship with at a fair or above market rate? Is that an important part of it as well?
Yes, I think that is a very important part of it, especially because if you have a surplus of work and people are trying to decrease your hourly rates, you'll probably choose the one that's going up. So you'll stop working that project. As simple as that. If, however, there's a fair balance where you negotiate an hourly rate that's beneficial for both of you,
Yep.
then yeah, I think that can work.
Certainly. Anyone else have anything to add on that topic?
Yeah, I might chime in here. If the hourly rate is not right, that creates pressure on the relationship, and anything that can't go on will eventually end. And this also applies to the working relationship between an agency and a contractor, obviously. And if the hourly rate is not right, you'll have to constantly counterbalance this somehow until it will eventually not be manageable.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
I guess, Hudson, from your experience with Codeable, is there collaboration tools, software, the best communication practices that you see drive the best outcomes?
Yeah, we do. We see, well, at Codeable, we don't limit communication to the platform. We allow the expert and the client to use the tools that best suit their workflow. And so we see all kinds of tools being used. For example, BugHerd, that's a great feedback tool. Our experts love it. Our clients love it. We see a lot of Kanban style boards. For meetings, we see Calendly. That's a really easy way to book a call. And Figma for designs. But communication, no matter where you're doing it, it's important to approach issues that you have with your experts in a constructive way. So if you run into a problem, no matter where you're communicating, one of the best things I advise experts and clients to do alike is to have a 15-minute call immediately. Having an in-person call with your contractor or your client, it humanizes you both. It brings everybody to the table, and it establishes bonds, and it makes working with the other person more pleasurable. You establish faith that might be lost through otherwise written correspondence, because people can be different in person than they are in writing, and it's no fault to either party, but people really come together when they're on a call. So whenever there's an issue, we always say, hey, go to a meeting, whether it's Google Meets or Zoom or the telephone. Jump on call as soon as possible. And if you run into a problem, and everybody runs into problems, what's most important is that you don't let it ruin the relationship. What you do is you identify the problem, and you take a step back with your associate, and you say, okay, hey, let's table this problem that we disagree on. Let's move it to the end of the project, and let's focus on what we know we can work together on. And through doing that, you're not going to sabotage your own relationship, and you're not going to let emotions or disagreements ruin what you have going. And you'll end up doing 99% of the project, and then you'll get to the end of the project, and then you can discuss the disagreement, which is normally a scope of work disagreement, because someone or another person, there was an unforeseeable aspect of the project that didn't make it into the language of the scope of work. And so yeah, talking to somebody in person immediately and delaying difficult issues to a later point in time on the timeline are probably the strongest advice I can give to both clients and experts. And if you ever reach out to my team, our team will advise you the same. Just get on call as soon as possible, Stephen. That's my advice for communication, and communication is on whichever tooling you're using.
Yeah,
So.
it's not a software problem. Marius, you have something to add?
Yeah, the question was about tools, and one little tool that plays magic for us. It's for resource allocation, for actually planning how many hours each of our team member, whether they are full-time or a contractor, would be able to work with us for us. And this is a question that we ask right off the bat when we start, even before we hire somebody like a contractor. We ask them, how many hours per day would you be able to easily work with us? Not graveyard shifts, not overstretched hours, just easily. What's your minimum? And then we get a number, maybe 2, 3, and then we allocate them in the tool. The tool we are using in this case is called Harvest Forecast, but there's a myriad of other resource planning tools. And these tools, it's an excellent approach to risk management, to mitigating risks, because if we know somebody has a 10-hour project or a 100-hour project, they are falling behind because they are not doing their hours, we will immediately see this in 1 or 2 or 3 days, because the work is not coming in at the rate that we have jointly agreed. And that helps quite a lot to bring up to get the visibility on what's happening, and also to properly set the expectations for both sides. And when we say we need 2 hours from you a day and you can give those 2 hours, it doesn't mean you have to work between X and Y hour during the day. You can go to your conference, you can sit by the pool, but you just need to get those X hours done. Yeah, that works very well.
We're going to move towards wrapping up here. So just based on time, and we'll have some questions at the end. So if anyone has any questions for our experts here, please place them in the chat now, and we'll come to Q&A. But just as a wrap up, so for each of you, if you could give agency owners one pivotal piece of advice for building, maintaining robust long-term relationships with expert freelancers, what would that be? So start with you, Shanta.
There has to be some give and take. You're hiring them for their expertise. If you don't trust them, you don't trust them, but at least trust them enough to, even before you put any money down, ask them questions and educate yourself, right? If you're going to build a WordPress project and you don't know what the dashboard is, you need to go and figure that out. And, don't feel like you're going to ask a question and feel like an idiot, or that you're not going to be up to snuff. Just line up your questions and see how they answer them. If they, are impatient, if they are, oh, that's beneath me, you don't want to work with them. That's all there is to it. They may say, look, we're not a good fit, and that's okay. But make sure that you, as the agency, educate yourself well enough to, make sure that you have in front of you what it is that you want to achieve and know what your goal is too.
Excellent. Elson?
Okay, so I would advise start testing with smaller projects and see how you would work with those freelancers, and see if you play nice together in terms of developing a relationship. Once that base is set, you can increase the risk or the projects you allocate, and then you will adapt from there. I think one of the biggest mistakes that can be had is that you start with a large project and you don't have a base of confidence set up. And then midway, you don't know exactly how to handle things. For example, if the client hires an expert out of bat for a big project, by design, there's a mistrust in the beginning because you don't know each other, and you can either gain trust by battles together, or you can develop trust in a smaller risk with smaller tasks.
Excellent, thank you. And Marius?
Admitting myself, I would circle back to treating all the colleagues alike, give access to both the contractors and full-time employees to all the Slack channels they should have access to. Don't treat them as, oh, these guys are less reliable and these guys are more reliable, because the moment you start telegraphing this, it will just, this is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
No, absolutely. All right, well, thank you very much. Might wrap up the discussion there. We've got a few questions in the Q&A and in the chat. If anyone has any others, please place them in there. But I might start with you, Hudson, because there's one directly for Codeable. So does Codeable offer project management services for managing freelancer projects? If not, are there any recommended resources for this?
We don't internally, but we can set you up with fine individuals like Elson really quickly. We have, sorry, and Shanta. I say Elson because he is actually a pod lead at our company. And when we have strategic partners send us clients, one of the first things we like to do is put them in with with an expert who can listen to their goals and pain points. And we do have a rotating roster of experts who come in and help us in this regard. And we're always looking to increase the number of experts we put in front of strategic clients from strategic partners. So yes, although we do not supply this internally, as in we don't have employees who are dedicated to this, we do have experts who this is their bread and butter. They actually prefer managing clients and experts and their colleagues, and they're that great mediator who can help you define the scope and maintain it across its life cycle. So in those instances, ask and we will find the right fit for you. We have plenty of talent who enjoy this work.
Elson?
So the person asking may be asking because they have a team and would like input for to manage a project until completion. On Codeable, it happens on occasions where an expert is onboarded and works with the client's internal teams and helps tidy up the house in terms of understanding issues that are ongoing, creating documentation and scheduling. So this could be an option. If your project needs a project manager, you can pick, for example, Shanta. She's amazing at it, and she will help you or your company reach the project goals.
Excellent. Thank you. So Matthew Buck, I hope that answered your question. Next one from Edith Allison, which is for Shanta. Do you recommend a tool or app to handle change management?
I have, so I took a course. I'm a certified level 1 WordPress project manager with the WP roadmaps and the WP Academy, and they have all kinds of resources in there, and it's a spreadsheet. Honestly, it's basically a Word doc and a spreadsheet, and the idea is every time there was a change requested, I would usually number it by the phase it was in, and the number would allocate to the change within that phase. Like this is the first one, second one, third one, and then I would have a separate spreadsheet that would actually keep track of which ones those are. The best part about this is that the nice little add-on that you can offer your clients at the end of this is basically a management handbook, right? There's the web owner's manual that I know that they have from one of the academies, but there's also something like this where it's like, here is a summary of your project. And here's all the things we went through. Here's some lessons that we learned along the way. And here's all of the documentation, not just about your website, but about the project itself that got us here. So that's another way you can do that. So yeah, the one that I have some good templates for you, Edith. And if you want, I'll happily hook you up with that.
Excellent, thank you. And so from Nicole, any advice for successfully implementing an SOP with a remote team of contractors? Who would like to take that one? Who would like to take that one? Anybody? Shanta, you can begin.
Okay, look, with dealing any standard operating procedure, I think Marius was talking about this earlier, is you're going to know within 2 to 3 days if they're not keeping up. The key to implementing that and sticking to it is to making sure that they are completing it in the deadline that was promised. Look, first day, if they don't get it right, okay. If by the end of the first week you say, okay, you were supposed to do these 5 things, you got 4 of them done, the 5th one may not be as bad or whatever. You've got to do a retrospective and do it often and do it fast. That is going to be the way that you're going to be able to find out if they're a good fit, which is what Marius was saying, especially if it's going to be a long-term thing. And you can also then start to find where they're going to work better. If you want somebody that is in your own time zone, tell them that. We get a lot of cases on Codeable where they said, well, we expected this person to start working, but then they dropped off. Well, yeah, because they're 10 hours ahead of you. So if you didn't set up that expectation from the beginning, it's not going to work. So I think a lot of this is not just about standard operating procedures and those scopes. It's about setting expectations before you even get there.
So as a follow-on, any advice around implementing a new standard operating procedure with existing team of contractors? So the change process of that.
Not from my end. I think Marius and Ellison probably have better, but I mean, I think it's going to depend on whether they're going to be that contractor or whether they're going to be, or is it a team of contractor that's managed by one person, or are you managing a bunch of individual contractors yourself? So I think that's going to play a role. I'll let the other guys go ahead.
Marius, thoughts?
Yeah, for example, one thing that we do, then again, with everyone, we don't have SOPs just for contractors, is when they finish a task, and we use Asana, they need to provide proof of testing. And this can come as a simple screenshot. This is how it looked like when I finished it, not on my machine. It works on my machine, on the staging side, or maybe provide a video. Why is this important? Yeah, or BugHerd, that's even better. Yeah, but that's how they left it when they took their hands off the task and they said it's done from my perspective. So that's like one little thing that helps with accountability. It helps with miscommunications, such as, oh, I thought it should be like this. No, I thought it should be like that. No, this is what I thought it should be like, and this is what I built, and this is what I delivered. That's like one little thing that we have in the SOPs.
Excellent. And so, for the interest of time, again, might just begin to wrap up. So I just have a final question that I was thinking about as we were talking here, is that if you're entering into freelancers contracting, is this a thing that you decide as a long-term decision? Because it sounds like a lot of this, you are treating people as employees. You've got to test and learn how to do it. You've got to, communicate in different ways. Is it a thing that you can just duck in and out of? I have a project, I need someone right now, or is it I have a strategy here that I'm going to be able to work with external talent, and I'm going to get that right over time? Any thoughts on that? Hudson? Oh, no, sorry, Elson, you put your hand up.
So, how many of us have saved projects that the client came with description? Oh, the website's not working. My previous developer's unreachable. I don't know where that person is. Don't be that person. If you are going to be a freelancer, even if for a limited time, develop a path, right? Because if you become a freelancer for 3 months and you work a couple of hours for an agency, that should be okay. However, if you deliver client projects, that's basically a mountain you build. And then it becomes stronger with time and it becomes resilient. And you'll get more clients, you get recurring projects. You may eventually evolve into a more structured way as an agency, or you may stabilize at a certain size with like 3 or 4 stable clients. However, I don't think it is a short-term solution. And we'll see that when the economy changes a bit. We'll see that there's like a flood of new freelancers, people who want to make some extra money. I don't think those are the proper reasons. I think needing money is a valid reason, but you should make it right. You should plan in 6 months to a year. And even if you stop, you should have a plan to hand over those clients to either another freelancer or an agency so they are not left dry.
And certainly
Always have a backup plan.
and from the agency's perspective, it's a long-term decision as well.
Yeah, for us, it's always a long-term decision. By the way, there was a question, if we need to onboard quickly a freelancer to deliver on some project, we would just say no to the client. Sorry, we can't do this within your time frame.
Yeah.
It goes back to the values, treat value number two, treat others as you'd like to be treated.
Yeah, it invites risk and problems for later on. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks everybody for your amazing expertise, sharing insights today. I really enjoyed the conversation. Hudson, I believe you had a quick closing remark.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for your attendance and time and attention. We want to let you know that Codeable not only takes on WordPress work, but we take on non-WordPress work such as React. We even have Shopify experts. We've seen Django projects, all kinds of frameworks. We take it on because our expert community, we're developers and product developers at heart. We like working with tech stacks and technologies and learning and staying on the cutting edge. And we have over 750 of them. So yeah, SEO, performance optimization, we really do it all. So if you've made it this far and you're still here and you do want to reach out to us, I want to invite you to email my team at the success department directly using concierge@codeable.io, and my team will do a shortlist recruitment project. We'll learn about your pain points, your goals, and we'll make sure you have a high satisfaction experience. Other than that, I just want to thank the experts here who joined and shared their insights. We really appreciate our experts at Codeable, and you too, BugHerd, for hosting this event.
I was going to say, can we thank BugHerd for hosting us? Thank you so much. It's been fun.
Very, very welcome. That's it. So thanks all for joining us. You'll receive a recording of the webinar shortly. When you leave it, there's a quick survey. If you could please fill that in, because it gives us feedback on how to improve future sessions. Anyone interested in learning about BugHerd, of course, how we can improve communication between agencies, freelancers, clients, visit our website or reach out directly. And other than that, have a great day. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day to everyone.